Hello students, welcome to the Recitals in-Depth by Vajiram Ravi. Here we will cover the economy and infrastructure June 2024 current affairs topics in detail. The broader themes which we are going to cover today are as follows: Indian agriculture, money and banking, public finance, investment and infrastructure, and finally we'll be concluding with social development. So stay tuned. Hello students, welcome to the discussion. We'll be discussing the Indian economy and infrastructure topics in the month of June 2024 recitals. So I will be showing you the table of contents for the Indian economy part, where we'll be seeing so many diverse topics that actually have come in the current affairs. So we'll be starting with the very first one, and before I start with the first one, I want all of you to actually open your recitals and also watch the video together. This will be ensuring that if you are stuck anywhere while reading, you will be easily able to understand the topics via such video discussions. So always try to watch and read the recitals together. This will be ensuring holistic completion and also completion of the recitals within a time-bound manner. That is, whatever the duration of the recitals video would be, you would be completing those topics within that particular time. So this will be also ensuring that you won't be lacking or say would be lagging behind in the completion aspect of the recitals or the monthly magazine part. So with this, we'll be starting with the very first article. Now, according to Government of India reports, we are coming to know that maybe a new bank is at a proposal stage. That means a new bank that is exclusively being tailored for the MSMEs. Now we know that MSME stands for micro, small, medium enterprises. Now these small enterprises, medium enterprises, these are actually the backbone of Indian economy. Why? Because we understand that MSMEs firstly are granted legal status under the Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises Development Act of 2006, and it comes directly under the Ministry of MSME. So we understand that since a ministry under Government of India is dedicated exclusively towards MSMEs, we only can understand the importance and strength of the economic significance of them. And firstly, when we talk about the classification of MSMEs, which are very important for your prelims examination, we have to understand earlier we had a different set of classification. Earlier we had classifications based on the sectors of the Indian economy. Firstly, we had MSMEs in the manufacturing sector, and also we had MSMEs based in the service sector. Right now, after 2020, when the COVID actually struck Indian economy, the Indian government actually changed the classification of the MSMEs based on only one criteria, that is, they clubbed both of the earlier classification into one single manufacturing in the service classification, right? And when we talk about the norms, say the norms or the criteria for the MSMEs, right now we have only the criteria of investment and annual turnover. Earlier we had investment in plant and machinery or equipment, and based on that we had investment, right, based on micro, small and medium classification for both manufacturing and services. Separately earlier we had this. Right now what we have the combined classification of micro, small, medium, and based on that we have investment and annual turnover. So it is right now very simple to follow, both in cases of manufacturing and services. So if it is a micro enterprise, that means we mean that the investment is less than 1 crore, turnover is less than 5 crore. In the case of small, investment is less than 10 crore, turnover is less than 50 crore. Simply, and again in the case of medium, we have the investment less than 20 crore and turnover less than 100 crore. So this is actually a very simple way of understanding, and also we have to understand that this small information, these small classifications are highly important for your prelims examination, right? Also, when I talk about prelims examination and the importance of them, but again, UPSC can actually ask such question in mains also. The basic questions, for example, there was a question back in the, say, 2-3 years, they asked about the amalgamation or say the various taxes which were resumed under GST. So we can also expect similar questions on the revision of the norms for MSME classifications. Also, for students who have economics optional, UPSC has actually asked a question on the classification of MSME. So this is a very important topic for you all. Now I was talking that MSMEs are actually the backbone of Indian economy. Why? Because according to ministry data, Ministry of MSME data, we understand that MSME represents 27% of India's GDP, and it is actually a very huge number when we talk about contribution of MSMEs to India's GDP. In India, there are around 6.4 crores MSMEs, and these MSMEs are generating more than 11 crore jobs. And this is actually, say, the MSMEs, the jobs in the MSME sector accounts for around 23% of the overall employment. And it also makes the MSME sector India's second largest employer. Now in the comment section, you tell me what is the first largest employer in India, or if I tell generally, if I give you a hint, it is a very important sector of our Indian economy. It is actually also known as the real economy in conventional economics, right? So you let me know the answer in the comment section. And also it is representing around 40% of the total manufacturing output. And we understand that since MSMEs directly manufacture, say, textiles, say, toys, say, various machineries and whatnot, so they represent more than around, say, 39% of the total manufacturing output. And also it is highly important, right, to quote to understand the export potential of the MSMEs. So they contribute more than 45% of India's exports, right, to the total, say, export contribution. So it is highly important to understand the real significance of the MSME sector. Firstly, do use this data whenever you are actually given any mains question, right? If you start your answers with this kind of data, you will be definitely getting that 1 extra marks, right? Now, when I talk about the various issues faced by MSMEs, we have to understand the very first issue that MSMEs face is the issue of funding, right? This is highly quoted everywhere. We have to understand that with reference to MSMEs, right, 90% of the loans, right, 90% of the credit of the loans that are given to MSMEs actually come from the informal sector. They come from the informal sector. It can be with reference to the local money lenders. It can be, say, from the non-banking sector. It can be from friends, relatives, and so on. So we understand most of the MSMEs in India are actually small MSMEs, and that is why we understand they are not having a good balance sheet. They're not having a good amount of profitability. And whenever an MSME, or whenever you as an individual will be going to the banks for taking any type of loan, the first thing that the banks will be verifying from you will be your profits, will be your incomes. And since they generally do not generate too much of incomes, right, on an individual basis, it has been understood that according to various Government of India reports, MSMEs, the most of general MSMEs in India, they suffer losses. And this is actually due to their size, due to various other reasons. And that is why this is one of the various important concerns that they face. That is the issue of funding. There are huge amount of credit gaps when it comes to the MSMEs. Now, second reason, the second issue that the MSMEs face is the issue of dwarfism. Now, according to Economic Survey 2018-19, it has been said, it has been quoted in the Economic Survey that in India, most of the MSMEs are dwarfs. Now, who are dwarfs, right? These MSMEs are actually very old. These MSMEs are actually very old, or actually more than 10 years of their incorporation, or say of their founding. That means that MSMEs are quite old, more than 10 years of age. But these MSMEs are not increasing in size, right? They are not increasing in size. That means that it is generally understood that, for example, if a person is establishing a small enterprise, obviously that person will be investing more in that enterprise. For example, this is a small bakery. So a person will be prompted to invest in this bakery and transform the small size to, say, a medium sized bakery. From medium size, say, for example, to a large size bakery. So it has been understood that MSMEs over a period of time, they would be generally expanding. Why? Because of, they say, the nature of business, because they would want higher profits, and then they will be expanding in size. But in India, we have many incentives for the small and micro enterprises. And eventually when an MSME try to expand, the economic incentives, for example, the tax exemptions, say the land exemptions and various regulatory exemptions, they do not work. So this is why most of the MSMEs in India would prefer to remain small. And this is actually one of the reasons which Economic Survey quoted, that most of the MSMEs in India are micro MSMEs or say micro enterprises or small enterprises. Right, very few MSMEs in the country are actually of the medium size or of the they are incorporated companies, private companies, and so on. And this is why, because sometimes it can be seen that maybe one of the reasons was funding. This is why they could not expand. One of the reasons for actually they did not intentionally expand because they would want to get the economic benefits from the government of India and say the various state governments. And this is why the reason of which they remain small. And we have to also understand that this is actually impeding the growth of the manufacturing sector. Right? So this is what the economic survey said, that we must be encouraging, we must be actually nurturing this dwarfs, and we should be transferring or transforming them to become giants in the sector, right? Because they have huge potential, and that is where the government of India must be helping in this respect, right? Apart from this, we have also several other issues. Several other issues will be, thirdly, the issue of environmental degradation, right? Environmental degradation, we understand that MSMEs, since they are small, their profitability is also quite limited. Their capital, or say their technology is not well developed. The technology is actually very poorly developed, and that is why they depend mostly on, say, the old aspects of manufacturing practices and so on. So this results into higher, say for example, CO2 emissions, higher amount of deforestation, right, and also higher amount of water pollution and so on. So it has been found that most of the manufacturing sector, right, and most of the output that is derived from the MSMEs, they are highly polluting in nature. And this is also one of the aspects which actually impacts their export potential, right? Their export potential is also impacted. Why? Because most of the countries from the EU, from the, say, United States, and also from the Western nations, we understand that they are not very receptive to the Indian exports via the MSMEs, because they quote quality standards issues, right? They quote quality standard issues that, Indian MSMEs are polluting in nature. They flout labor regulations, they flout environmental regulations, and that is why they have this qualitative restrictions on Indian exports from the MSMEs, right? So this is one of the issues. Other issues we have in the form of, say, poor market access, right? We have the technology access, the skilling, innovation, pertaining things. We also have some issues in relaxing the various norms and regulations with reference to the ease of doing business, and also the quality and export issues, which I also told. Now I am zooming this particular aspect for your all easy readability, right? We can understand that these are the various other issues. And when we talk about, say, the main aspect of reforming these issues and actually move or say solve the very first problem, the problem of funding. Now the government of India has actually came up with a new idea. Now before that new idea, we have to also understand how the MSMEs are being funded right now. The MSMEs are funded right now by a very, very important institution known as SIDBI. SIDBI stands for Small Industries Development Bank of India. The stakeholders or the shareholders of SIDBI are actually Government of India, owning around 21%, followed by SBI, LIC and NABARD. So this is actually an institution which lends funds to the MSMEs. And how they do that? They actually do this with collaboration with the commercial or say scheduled commercial banks in the country. And how they do this? They do this via a very, very important mechanism or say a requirement by the RBI on all the scheduled commercial banks and the regional rural banks and the small finance banks, that these kind of banks must be doing something for the priority sectors of the country, right? Priority sectors of the country, and that is why the loans which are given to the priority sectors, they are known as priority sector lending. And what do we mean by this priority sector lending? We understand that in India there are many priority sectors, or say there are some sectors in the country, such as, for example, MSMEs in our case, right? We have the Indian agriculture, agri-farmers and so on. We also have the self-help groups, we have students pursuing education, say higher education. We have startups, right? We have various renewable energy projects, for example, say solar projects, wind projects, and so on. So these are the various priorities of the country right now, right? And that is why it has been told that RBI has mandated the scheduled commercial banks, they must be giving 40% of their entire loan portfolio to these priority sectors. RBI additionally has also told that the regional rural banks and the small finance banks, they must be together be contributing 75% of their overall loans to the priority sectors. Now why? Because we understand it is better for the entire economy as a whole to progress if these sectors are individually taken care of. Because we have seen the significance of MSMEs, the second largest employer of the country, and also contributed to exports, manufacturing, GDP, and so on. Indian agriculture is the same part, right? We must be focusing more and more self-help groups, startups, renewable energy, and so on. So this is why the banks are actually have to mandate 40% and 75% in case of RRBs and small finance banks to the MSMEs. And also we have to understand that out of this entire target, for example, it's a 40% target of the scheduled commercial banks. In this target also we have various criterias. For example, for agriculture, we must be out of this target giving 18% of the funds. For MSMEs or say the micro enterprises, we must be giving 7.5% of the funds. And how the RRBs, how the small finance banks actually give loans to the MSMEs? By actually bringing one intermediary in between, that is the SIDBI. So SIDBI, what it does, it actually individually takes the loans from the scheduled commercial banks, and these loans are then passed on to the MSME. So you can tell that SIDBI is kind of an intermediary transaction, say facilitator with reference to the MSMEs and scheduled commercial banks, right? And this is why this SIDBI is highly important to function as an intermediary. And there are also various state government agencies and various financial agencies which also directly lends to the MSMEs. But here, that is actually the main reform that the government wants to bring in when it talks about creating a new bank to bridge the credit gap for the MSMEs. According to various government reports, we understand that the government is considering a proposal to set up a separate bank altogether. Now this separate bank, according to various reports, it is found out that this bank will be maybe on a PPP model, that is public-private partnerships. So government will also be there in this particular bank. Private sector, maybe private sector we mean the various scheduled commercial banks, the small finance banks, the RRBs, right? They also will be present within the private sector ambit. And while under the government sector, the government banks will be there and they will be individually functioning as a single bank. And why it is very much required? Because it is highly needed right now to have targeted lending to the MSMEs, because it has been found out that SEBI sometimes falls short of its various targets of loans being disbursed to the MSMEs. So there have been many, say, clearances, paperwork, filing agencies and so on, which actually create some issues for the MSMEs to take loans. And that is why this targeted lending is very important right now with reference to MSMEs, and that is why only a new bank, a special bank dedicated for them, they would be able to do so. And here, right now, there have been also many news articles based on, say, the various issues in the sector, such as lenders or say the banks struggling to bridge credit gap amongst, say, poor quality of security, collateral, and so on. And that is why this particular bank is being conceptualized. And this makes it a very, very important recommendation in your mains answers. So any answers based on MSMEs, you can easily recommend creating a new bank until the bank is being created, right? So understand that still now this is in a proposal stage. And finally, we'll be also looking at some of the important government schemes for the MSMEs, right? Now, these government schemes are firstly credit linked capital subsidy scheme to actually purchase some of the important capital, functioning capital for the MSMEs, say machines, equipments and so on. We also have the credit guarantee scheme for subordinate debt. This is providing support to the MSMEs who have actually taken many loans from the banks, and those loans have actually turned into NPAs or non-performing assets. So here, those non-performing assets would be taken up by the government and say the MSMEs will be restructured. And finally, we also have the PM formalization of micro food processing enterprises scheme, which is a very, very important scheme with reference to the food processing industry. Now, food processing industries are actually, we understand that most of the enterprises here are MSMEs only, and that is why for the various aspects of say capital and various aspects of skilling imperatives, this skill is doing the same. We also have Stand Up India and the PM Swanidhi, which Stand Up India is actually the government initiative for the very scheduled tribes, scheduled caste and women. Loans are actually given to promote entrepreneurship and set up MSMEs for these sections of the population. And finally, the PM Swanidhi is trying to give affordable loans to the street vendors, right? So these are the various schemes which you can keep in mind for the MSMEs. And finally, like always, I have practice questions in almost all of the topics, right? So the answers of which I definitely want in the comment section. So all of you please participate. This question is on the SIDBI, and it would be very good if you all participate and if you contribute to the answers, right? So this is the question here. You read the question, if needed pause the video and give the answer in the comment section. Now students, recently the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India, the IBBI, has actually given some amendments and say some recommendation for the various amendments to the insolvency resolution process in the country. And it is a very important topic, and that is why we have to basically start with very basic terms. Firstly, we will be starting with insolvency. Now, these very terms, insolvency, bankruptcy, are very important first to understand the further topics. Now see, insolvency is a process, is actually the state of a financial company. Now to understand these terms, take a very simple example. Now imagine this is an ice cream parlor, right? Now this is an ice cream parlor where the owner has done what? The owner has bought the land, right? The owner has actually purchased some equipment, say to actually make the ice cream, right? And also hired some more employees, for the ice cream parlor here. And now what happens? For example, the owner has incurred a cost of around 1 crore to set up the entire business here. And out of this 1 crore, maybe the owner has taken the loan of around 50 lakhs from the banks, right? From the banks, from say family members and so on. So 50 lakh is a loan that is taken by this ice cream parlor here. Now, obviously over a period of say for example 1 year, the profit of the company must be exceeding more than 1 crore, right? Otherwise the entire cost will not be recovered at all. Now say after 1 year, the entire profit comes to be only at 20 lakhs. Now the business is not at all working, right? Maybe the flavor of the ice cream is not good, or maybe the behavior of the staff is not good. So that is due to some reasons or something else, right? The profits are not coming. And here, this is actually a case. For example, this is in year 1. In year 2, the profit comes to be around say 30 lakhs. In year 3, the profit comes to be around say 20 lakhs again. So this is a case when the company is actually making a lot of losses, right? The company is in a loss. And it is not only anguishing for the employees or say the owners here. It is also a cause of despair and financial loss for the banks also, because the banks have given him a loan of 50 lakh rupees. So this is actually a process when a company is making subsequent losses, right? So this is the process which we know as insolvency. This is a term which we refer to as insolvency, or a financial state when a company is unable to turn the business into profitable agency, right? And for example, right now, the banks are very angry in this moment. Now the banks want to recover the money from the business as soon as possible, because the banks have given 50 lakh rupees, right? And this is a reason, and this is a condition when the banks will be going and running to the say various authorities, the government and the state governments and so on. They will be demanding their money back. So there must be a process in which that money must be brought back, right? So that process is actually a legal process when this company would be declaring legally that, okay, my business is not operating, so I am bankrupt right now. I am not in a state where I cannot even meet my dues or obligation, right? So this is a case of bankruptcy, and when that individual will be going from insolvency to legally declaring that I am bankrupt. And finally, the last stage would be the liquidation of the company, or say finding some alternative solutions for the business to continue or being totally shut down. So this is the state of liquidation, when the winding up of a company, or say the closing down of a company, or say the change of ownership of the company is actually looked into. So IBC takes care of three things: insolvency, bankruptcy and liquidation. So it is very important for us to understand this in a simple manner. And in India, we have which is actually touted by Justice Call as, the ease of doing business facility for the various business institutions in the country. Because we understand that in India, it is the government of India's mission or vision to create more and more enterprises, to create manufacturing, to make in India, and to increase the GDP of the country, right? This is actually the main policy ambition of the country. And we have to also understand that more and more business will be actually better for the Indian economy. But what if these businesses are not operating properly? Then also we must be finding suitable measures to actually shut down the business and let that owner start a new business altogether. So it must be improving the ease of doing business here. And this is what, Justice Call is also appraising. And here, this was done with the introduction of the Insolvency Bankruptcy Code of 2016, right? Now, under IBC 2016, we have the Insolvency Bankruptcy Board of India. Now, this is a statutory body which was created under the IBC 2016, right? And this authority, this government authority, is actually the primal authority for all cases and concerns related to Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India. And what it does is actually having a database of all the companies which are actually undergoing bankruptcy, right? It is also serving a very, very important role in actually recruiting people known as insolvency professionals. Insolvency professionals are expert, for example, chartered accountants, legal experts who are experienced in the insolvency bankruptcy cases, right? So this Insolvency Bankruptcy Board of India, they also selects the insolvency professionals via various insolvency professional agencies, right? IPS. So what they do, they actually take the main care of the various IBC process in the country. And here, when we actually look into that example again, when we look that there is this company, ice cream company, for example, right? And this ice cream company has actually suffered a default. And right now, the main function of the business, or say the main function of the various creditors, is actually to recover the money back from the business. And how it is done? It is done when, for example, if the company is actually defaulting. So any of the creditors, when I mean any of the creditors, this means the creditors can be of two types. The creditors can be operational creditors, and the creditors can be financial creditors. Who are the operational creditors? Operational creditors are, for example, say the raw material supplier to the companies. It can be the employees of the companies, right? So these are the operational creditors, because in the day-to-day operations, they actually look into the company. Then the financial creditors, for example, so the banks, NBFCs, and even the home buyers who have actually given a lump sum of money to a real estate project which has not been constructed yet. So even the home loan buyers, home buyers who have actually given money, their money is also counted as a financial creditors, apart from the banks, NBFCs, and so on. So after a default by any company, the creditors can immediately approach an authority known as the NCLT, National Company Law Tribunal. Now, National Company Law Tribunal has around more than 10-15 branches all across the country. So Actually, it depends on where this company is located and where the financial creditors are located. Based on that, on any at any branch of the NCLT, the creditors, any of the creditors, financial and operational creditors, they can actually approach the NCLT that, look, this company is not performing, and look, our money is stuck here. For example, the banks will be telling that our wages are our loans are stuck. The employees can complain that my salaries or wages are being stuck. So any of the creditors, they can approach the NCLT, and NCLT has to consider this application within 14 days. Within 14 days, within 2 weeks. And after the consultation, after the discussion and NCLT, a decision must be made on the various assets. For example, the assets can be particular machines, say buildings, say copyright, trademarks, patents, right? Any other assets. It can be the various assets of the company. Now finally, the NCLT within 14 days, it has to be deciding as to what to be done with the company. So finally, within 14 days, the NCLT can refer the matter finally to the insolvency professionals, as we have discussed. Now these insolvency professionals, once they have been appointed, right? Once they have been appointed, within 330 days, they would be requiring to complete the entire process of, say, finding a solution to the particular dispute here. For example, the dispute is a default here, how to return back the money or how to actually strengthen the business here. So what the insolvency professionals will be doing, they will be taking over the company. Right now what they will be doing, they will be taking over the company, the various management functions of the company, and they will be looking as to what the issues of defaults are. Right? Based on this, they will be making a plan. Right? Insolvency professionals, they will be making a plan. The plan can be, for example, say the main aspect of IBC is actually to recover the losses. So firstly, they can recommend that maybe we can lower the interest rate of the loans. Maybe if the banks lower their interest rates, maybe the company can pay it back over a long period of time. Right? Maybe we can actually extend the tenure of the loans, because maybe the loan was taken for 3 years. Now the insolvency professionals in their plan, they recommend that, okay, maybe you extend the tenure for around 5 years more and you can recover your money. The banks can recover their money back. Or if nothing of them are working, what you can do, you can actually liquidate. You can actually liquidate all the assets of the company. Right? So this is how we must be going forward in the in this particular case here. And note that this insolvency process, or this is actually known as Corporate Insolvency Resolution Process, or CIRP. Now this CIRP is actually only for the businesses who have defaulted. It is not for those businesses who have willfully defaulted. Right? If that is the case, they will be coming under SARFAESI Act. Now these are the businesses who have defaulted on the basis of the various functioning of the companies and so on. Right? Now let us look into the various recent proposals of the IBBI. Firstly, there must be a comprehensive report on the various valuations of the assets involved in the liquidation of any company. We understand that there are diversity of assets in a company. There can be land, right? There can be vehicles, there can be various machines and equipments, right? So we have various prices, we need various expertise to actually ascertain what is the real value, and then only the banks can get back their money properly. So that is what the IBBI recommended, that the valuation reports must be very comprehensive and this must be submitted in a period of time. And the second proposal is actually regarding the interim insolvency resolution process, right? That means that until and unless that the NCLT is actually giving you the green signal for the insolvency professionals and so on, you cannot start this CIRP. But it has been recommended right now that there must be an interim insolvency resolution process for the companies to get started before, because there can be various delays, right? There can be various delays in the insolvency professionals or say the various agencies. So to reduce the delays, we must be swiftly starting directly with the insolvency process, right? And finally, it was recommended that the guarantors, right, guarantors of any company, for example, a company has actually taken a loan from a bank. So that company has actually taken a loan from a bank, and this loan is actually backed by another company who is known as guarantor. So it means that if this company is not being able to pay the loan back, the guarantor company will be paying the loan in this company's favor. So here it is proposed that the guarantees should be also be brought under the IBC framework to make the norms of the IBC more and more applied, or say more and more stringent on the guarantees too. So these are the three main proposals which we need to understand. And here I want to tell you again some of the basic highlights of the IBC. So it is for the companies who wind up their business, and the companies whose outstanding loan is more than 1 crore. Only those companies should be taken into this insolvency resolution process, right? So this is the information which I gave you regarding statement 1 of this quiz, right? So the minimum default is right now 1 crore rupees that is required to be initiated a corporate insolvency resolution process in India. 1 lakh rupees was earlier before the COVID period. When the COVID struck, it became very difficult for the companies to pay back their loans, and that is when the government raised the limit to 1 crore. And for the rest of the answer, you let me know in the comment section below. In this article, we'll be looking into a very welcome move by the Securities Exchanges Board of India, the SEBI, where the SEBI has tightened norms on the financial influences in the country. And we have to understand that this is one of the main reforms that it has taken apart from the other reforms. And for that, first we have to understand who are known as finfluencers. Now, finfluencers are those people who are actually growing in number right now, as we can see here, right? According to BBC, finfluencers are on the rise. Now, these are the people who make videos on the social media. It can be YouTube, Instagram, and many others. And some of you can actually let me know in the comments below who are the top 5 finfluencers according to you. Now, what these people do? They make content. They make content on the various financial, say, investment opportunities. For example, they make content on stocks, right? They make content on options. They make content on, say, the various mutual fund options available, or say the various tax planning aspects where these financial influencers are telling you how to file your ITR returns, how to, say, save your taxes, right? So these are the various contents that they actually make on. And we have to understand, if they're making content on stocks, taxes, mutual funds, options, trading, intraday, and so on, so they must be very highly experienced, say, investment bankers, or say some directors of some big financial companies and so on. They must be proper MBAs with finance degrees, with CFA certifications. They must be stockbrokers in real life with proper certifications. Most often it has been found they are not. They are just normal, people with normal graduations, they have, mostly it has been seen, they hardly have any financial backgrounds, and they are the people who go onto the social media and they talk about this kind of financial products. And this is a very big case of concern, because we understand that the profitability of the finfluencers is actually very high, right? The profitability, the profits that they generate from the video is very high, because many people would want to invest, many people would want to save, but their expertise is actually an issue, right? Firstly, when we talk about the need to regulate them, we have to firstly talk about their expertise. So their expertise is actually doubtful, right? If you are advising me on the investment opportunities on stocks, funds, and so on, you should be having a proper degree, a proper experience, a proper past record of giving proper returns to the individual customers and so on. But most of the times it is not. And if it is not, it is actually very harmful for the country, because we understand that in India, we have very low amount of financial awareness, right? And when we talk about financial awareness, right, the main aspect of financial awareness is the knowledge of the people, or say the Indians, with operating a bank account, investing in various options, futures, or say various equity, and so on. So this is where we have to understand that financial awareness is very important for us to inculcate. And this is where there is a report in the Hindu where according to this report, according to this survey, it is told that across various say gender, say marital status, age groups, and all professions and so on, it has been found that people, for example, if you look at the first case about the comparison between female and male, it has been found that females on a general basis, they have low financial behavior, right? When we talk about married and single people, married people have better financial behavior. When we talk about the age group between 20 to 59, it has been seen that the age group of 50 to 59-year-olds, they have higher amount of financial literacy, right? And also, if we look at, say, the salaried individuals, the retired people actually have better amount of financial knowledge, right? And finally, we understand that the higher the education level, the better the financial knowledge, because we find that the people in the graduate and the postgraduate level, they have higher financial awareness. And finally, people who fall in the higher income annual income brackets, they also have higher, say, amount of financial awareness, right? So this is what we have to understand. Also in the case of, say, metropolitan areas, we understand people are actually having higher financial awareness. So there are many factors which makes it the reason. But we have to understand, when we talk about the second reason of financial awareness, right, it is dependent on so many factors, and this is what we also understand, this is lacking in the country as of now, right? So this is one of the aspects where these influences can actually influence the various people in the country to invest in various stocks and futures and options, and finally they will be suffering losses, right? Now, according to various reports by the SEBI, it has been found out that 90% of the people who invested in, say, derivative options such as securities and options and complex trading instruments, 90% of the people, they suffered losses. And we have to understand, these people have their hard-earned money in their bank accounts, in the stock markets, and if they face losses due to these individuals, it is hard, it is very difficult to imagine their life. And that is why we have actually the SEBI coming up with this proposal, right? So it has been firstly highly stated that influencers who are actually dealing in this particular segment of financial knowledge, financial literacy, they should be adhering to proper Advertising Standards Council of India, because it has been seen in many cases that the influencers, they actually take sponsorships, right? They actually take sponsorships from various companies, from various mutual funds to actually advertise their products, right? And also it has been seen in 2022 that there was a major stock price manipulation through social media and various chatting apps. How this can be done? For example, a particular influencer who has, for example, a following of more than 10 million people in the country. So that person is actually telling maybe the prices of our stock will be increasing. So what the 10 million people they will be doing? They will be instantly buying the stocks. And when they will be instantly buying the stocks, the demand for the stocks will be increasing. And we know that whenever demand rises, price of the stocks also rise, right? It may be due to no reason that the financial influencer that they told that the prices will be rising. But the prices rose finally. Why? Because of the various followers, and they actually put out their demand in the market, and then the price increased, and the main profit will be with the influencer, because they will be actually profiting from this kind of rumors in the market, right? So this was actually done back in 2022, and SEBI actually cracked down, right? So this is actually also in the past we have these instances with the cryptocurrencies also, the various cryptocurrencies such as bitcoins and so on. It is actually told right now that Bitcoin is a bubble, because the prices of Bitcoins are actually inflated due to various social media icons, due to also various prominent celebrities who adopt or say to promote this kind of financial instruments on a larger stage. So this is where we have to understand the issue lies. Apart from this, the SEBI has also proposed new rules regarding the delisting norms. regarding the delisting norms. Now it is not very important on our part to understand exactly what the delisting criteria are or how this is actually done. But in a delisting, this actually means to deregister yourself from the National Stock Exchange or the Bombay Stock Exchange. We know that the companies are listed on the stock exchanges. Now when the companies would no longer want to be listed on the stock exchanges, they would actually have to buy back all the shares. They would have to buy back all their shares, right? This is actually through a very complicated process known as reverse bookkeeping, reverse book building or keeping it is known as. So this is a process where around 90% of the stocks in the markets, in the stock market with the various stakeholders actually bought back by the company who would want to delist. And there are actually some of the important reforms which have been proposed by the SEBI right now. And finally, the third main change done by the SEBI is actually classifying derivative instruments such as options, futures and so on, and actually which of the stocks, which of the securities can be actually known as derivatives in this particular manner. Now again, it is not important for us to understand which of the stocks and which of the securities and so on, because we are not here to do a diploma in stock broking. We do not want to become a stockbroker. We want to pass the examination. That is why we must be actually understanding loosely what are some of the changes. Mainly, if you can see, these changes have been made to restructure the financial system in the country, the stock market system of the country. So in this case, we have another MCQ for you all. Pause the screen and let me know the answer below. Now in this article, we will be looking into the Preston Curve. The Preston Curve has been seen in the news because the term appeared in the Hindu, and UPSC has this habit of asking the terms in the news. You must have seen many questions in polity, in environment, in economy. They have actually asked us, this term has been in the news. For example, the Preston Curve relates to what? So they will be giving you A, B, C, D, 4 options, and you have to select the correct options there. So here, Preston Curve is a very simple economic concept. So the term Preston Curve is actually coming from a very noted economist known as Samuel Preston. And he termed the coin in his 1975 paper. And what he observed in the paper is that if you can actually put y-axis and x-axis and put GDP per capita on the x-axis, on y-axis you can put the life expectancy, right? There will be a proper apparent trend on the various countries here. Now, if you can understand, the Preston Curve is actually this blue curve which I right now did in red. Now this curve is actually the Preston Curve. Why? Because according to Preston, he told that countries such as Botswana, Namibia, Nigeria, which have, for example, is having $0 to $10,000 within this particular range, we find that there are many countries such as Nigeria, Namibia and so on. Now these countries are having low per capita income. So obviously we know that if your per capita income is low, your income is low, the people are in the country, they are actually earning low. And if your earnings are low, maybe you'll be having less money to spend on the various, say, basic needs of the country, right? Basic needs of the country. And when we talk about the basic needs, we obviously mean food, right? We obviously mean shelter, we obviously mean water, we obviously mean nutrition, we mean the proper health, we also mean education. So if you understand, the countries which are having low per capita income, they have lesser resources to spend on education, food and so on, the basic needs of the people, right? This was also referred something as capability of individuals by the Nobel Prize winning economist Amartya Sen. So Amartya Sen told that people have various capabilities they need to develop over their lifetime. That is, if the people want to live a decent quality of life, they would require education, good food and so on, good health facilities and so on. And this is where we have to understand that countries which are having low per capita income, they have less resources spent on the various amounts of basic needs. And that is why we find that as and when your income rises, we find the countries such as Japan, France, Spain, Italy, US, Germany, Korea, South Korea and so on. So we understand that these countries are on this part of the curve, but the least developed nations, the developing nations, they are on this part of the curve. That means within this range of income, there are many countries which are in the developing and least developed status. So these are the countries where the incomes are low, right? And that is why the life expectancy is also low of the people, because life expectancy is actually linked with the amount of income, with the amount of your health abilities and the various important status such as education attainment and so on. So a higher life expectancy is always reflecting a better quality of life, and this is actually represented by this part of the curve. So it means that the GDP per capita and the life expectancy are directly related. So that means that the higher the GDP of a country would be, according to Preston Curve, the higher the life expectancy of a country would be. So this is a simple correlation according to this empirical study. But there are some concerns in this curve. It means firstly that the first problem or concern is that it is not always the case that life expectancy depends only on the per capita income, right? Because apart from this, life expectancy can also be improved via, say, government funding in various education institutes, health institutes and so on. So it can be also possible, say, higher amount of life expectancy can also be seen in various countries such as Cuba and so on, where they are not highly industrialized, but still they are having high life expectancy because of the strong government social welfare programs. So due to social welfare programs, the scene can be better. Now the second problem which some of the economists tell, that sometimes even higher per capita income cannot solve the issue of low life expectancy because simply of the lack of technology. So technology is also very, very important when we actually talk about the social development of a nation, right? So this is where we understand the countries with less amount of technologies in health, in agriculture and so on, they actually suffer on the basis of development. So these are actually the two reasons why there are actually some problems with the curve, right? So with reference to this, we are again having another question for you all. The answer, please do let me know in the comments below. Now students, in the next one we'll be looking into the reasons as to why OPEC Plus has extended production cuts of its crude oil. We understand that OPEC is actually a cartel, and by cartel we understand it is kind of a monopoly where there is one or two big producer of a good or a commodity, in our case crude oil. So in this particular arrangement, the cartel, or say the rest of the companies, the rest of the countries, they follow a particular country which is leading in a production of a commodity which is actually much sought across the globe. We understand that in our world, we have very large producers of oil such as US, Russia, the Saudi Arabia and the Gulf nations. So according to their production capabilities, we have some of the countries which are involved in the production of crude oil, and the like-minded nations involved in the production of crude oil, they have formed a grouping together known as OPEC. OPEC stands for Organization of the Petrol Exporting Countries, and these countries attribute to more than, say, 50-60% of the entire oil supply all across the world. And here, this is an intergovernmental organization of 12 major oil producing countries which was founded in 1960. So it was actually founded by the first 5 members: Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia and Venezuela. Very, very important for your prelims, right? And the current OPEC members are Algeria, Congo, Equatorial Guinea, Gabon, Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Libya, Nigeria, Saudi Arabia, UAE and Venezuela. and Saudi Arabia is a leading producer of crude oil among the all OPEC members. And recently in 2024, Angola withdrew its membership from the OPEC group. And we have to understand that the main aspect of, say, OPEC Plus is actually regulating the price of the crude oil in the entire global markets. So how the prices can be regulated? Based on simple demand and supply mechanism. So for example, the OPEC, if it wants higher prices of crude oil, what they will do? They will decrease the supply of the crude oil, right? And for example, if there is high demand of crude oil in the market, and obviously the prices will be rise, so in this case they will be also supplying a lot of crude oil in the market. So the main aspect is actually via, say, the equilibrium of demand and supply forces. The OPEC is trying to control or stabilize the price of the oil in the global scenario. But it is not always the same. It has been seen in various situations that the OPEC is using its supply, say, monopoly of the crude oil, where it has been seen that at various instances to actually increase the prices of crude oil. So the OPEC has been seen cutting the price of the, or say cutting the supply, or say reducing the supply of crude oil in the global markets, right? And here the main objective, as I told you, is stabilizing prices. The initial headquarters were in, Geneva, Switzerland. Right now it is moved to Vienna, Australia in 1965, right? Now the OPEC member countries are responsible for 38% of the global oil production, and around, say, 9% of the total proven oil reserves which are not yet exploited are located in these nations, right? And we have to understand that OPEC is different from OPEC Plus. Why? Because in 2016, after the US started to increase their oil production, right? So OPEC tried to, say, bring in some of the other countries which are producing oil. Other countries are actually known as OPEC Plus when it is done in combination with the OPEC countries already. So apart from these countries in OPEC, the other countries are Russia, Mexico, Kazakhstan, Oman, Azerbaijan, Malaysia, Bahrain, South Sudan, Brunei and Sudan. So these are the non-OPEC participants which are considered the plus members of the OPEC, right? So they have come together to actually combat the rise of the US, because US would be the new competition in the market then. And this is where the OPEC Plus grouping is very, very crucial to understand. Now, we have seen that oil prices over a period of time, as you can see, from 2021, 22, 23 and right now also 24, they have kind of remained stagnant within this band, that is within $80 per barrel to $100 per barrel. And the crude oil prices, the nature of the prices to rise is very important for whom? The OPEC countries, because the higher the prices, the higher the profitability would be for them. And the prices, but nevertheless, they have remained stagnant in most of the time of the year. They have remained, or say, hovering recently, as we can also see, around at $80 per barrel. So this is actually considered as a very low price for the OPEC countries. And this is why, to firstly realize high amount of profits, the OPEC have actually introduced production cuts going forward, right? Going forward, it will be cutting global oil production up to 2025, and this is the main reason. One of the main reason is actually the losing amount of profitability. Second is actually the low amount of demand in the global oil commodity market, because of various inflation reasons, because of various global concerns on conflicts and so on. The global community is not demanding crude oil to that extent, and this is one of the reasons why the prices are fluctuating and prices are also quite low right now, right? The third reason for the production cut is actually to also look into US. What the US right now is doing, it is increasing the production of its own crude oil, right? And it is supplying in the market. And what it is doing, it is actually decreasing the prices of the crude oil. Why? Because with the advent of the US, the supply of crude oil in the market it increased, and whenever the supply increased, right, the prices will be definitely be going down. So this is also one of the reasons why the OPEC Plus is introducing production cuts, and this is why this topic is only important up to this extent, right? So all of the aspects that we need to know was important when we talk about the demand and supply and the possibility of a profit making of the OPEC part. And if you also look here, from all of the OPEC nations, Saudi Arabia is producing the highest number of crude oil, highest volume of crude oil, followed by Iraq, UAE, Kuwait, Iran, and so on, right? So based on this, I need all of you to solve the next quiz. Please let me know the answer of this in the comments below. So recently the FSSAI and the APEDA, they have come up with an unified India organic logo. What I mean that earlier, all of the organic food which was produced and cooked, they were given this Jaivik Bharat logo by the FSSAI, and the crops that were produced under the national program of organic produce was actually the logo of the same, of say the certification of the organic quality standards and so on, was given by the Ministry of Commerce by APEDA. So these were the two different logos regarding organic produce given by two different government bodies. Right now it has been merged into an unified logo, right? So that is this logo, which is talking about safe food when it is obtained from the organic conversion fields, and the India organic logo, that is which is actually talking about the fresh crops, fruits, vegetables which are obtained from the organic fields. So this is actually to bring out a clarity into what's the structure of the organic produce or food produced by the organic crops would be. And here we have, when we talk about the organic certification of food, we have two criteria here. Firstly, this is known as the participatory guarantee scheme. Now, when we talk about the organic certification of food in the country, we mean that those crops grown using proper organic farming practices, right? It can be in various farms where maybe the farmers, due to the lure of higher prices in the organic industry, right, the farmers can be telling that, okay, my crop is organic, but it is actually in real life not, because the farmer has actually used a lot of chemical fertilizers and so on. So to give a particular certification, right, based on a particular community of farmers who are doing organic farming, so that community of farmers, right, they will be self-certifying the crops. They will be self-certifying the crops that, okay, these crops are actually organic and also cultivated by organic means, right? So in this participatory guarantee scheme, the farmers as a community, these all are, the organic farmers community, they certify another farmers, they certify each other farms based on the various organic practices. And if they find everything to be proper, they give a self-certification that, okay, I give this PGS certification to this particular farmer's field, right? But we have to understand this is quite informal in nature. And this is why this certification is not valid internationally, right? And we have to understand any organic produced that is actually certified in this manner, right, is actually, say, allowed for distribution and sell within the country only. That cannot be exported abroad, right? And here when we talk about, say, the proper amount of codes and standards and rules and regulations with reference to organic produce, we have to understand that is formed by the Ministry of Commerce, by the APEDA, right, under the National Program for Organic Production. So what happens? The APEDA under this program, the APEDA would be sending various, say, for example, registered entities, registered agencies to the organic fields, right, and for example, the experts from APEDA, they would be surveying the various soil quality, the various raw materials used in the production, and finally, under various government rules and regulations, the particular fields or the farmer, they would be given an NPOP certification. And if this NPOP certificate is obtained by the farmer, this farmer can be exporting their organic produce to rest of the world. Because the rest of the world, for example EU, US, they only accept from India the certification given by the Ministry of Commerce by APEDA, right? So these are actually two ways to go for organic certification in the country. First is a self or voluntary kind of a certification given by the farmers in their own community, but this is not a very loose kind of a framework, right? But again, this is not a commonly internationally accepted standard. What is accepted is the NPOP by the APEDA, right? And here, when we have also come across many terms, many government bodies, it is important firstly we discuss about them. First, we have the Food Safety and Standards Authority of India. It is actually statutory body under the Food Safety and Standards Act of 2006, right? And it was established in 2008. The parent organization, or say the ministry, it is under the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, right? And the headquarters is at Delhi. The functions is that it regulates the food safety and quality standards in the country, and the key roles that it functions is setting food standards, licensing food businesses, conducting inspections, consumer awareness, and in the enforcement of food laws in the country. And that is why we have this certification or say logo by the FSSAI given to the organic produce, because you have to understand the main function is to actually maintain the food quality of the country. Acha. In the next one we have the APEDA. Now, APEDA stands for Agriculture and Processed Food Products Export Development Authority. It was established, by the APEDA, Act of 1985. Hence, it is a statutory body. The main objective is to promote and develop the export of any agricultural produce or a processed food product from the country. So, mainly it is geared to look into the food exports of the country, the agri and the food processing exports of the country. The main functions is market development, infrastructure development, quality development, export promotion, regulatory functions. And the key activities it does is market research, export promotion, various capacity, skilling aspect of the various farmers and the various employees. The products that they cover are fresh fruits, vegetables, processed food, meat and poultry, dairy products, spices, cereals, millets and so on. So we can understand crops, fruits and vegetables are covered, and the schemes they offer various schemes to the various farmers in various agricultural activities which will be helping them to actually increase India's agricultural export, right? So these are the various information that you need to know about FSSAI and APEDA. And with reference to that, I have a question for you all on APEDA. The question is very simple. The answer should also be mentioned in the comment section below. Recently, the SEBI set up Usha Thorat committee to actually recommend some changes and bring some reforms in the clearing corporations. And what are clearing corporations? We have to understand it through a very simple example. Firstly, imagine our own stockbrokers or the sellers of various stocks in the market, right? For example, shares, stocks, bonds, equities and so on. So we have various sellers of various financial instruments, and we have the Wolf of Wall Street for that, right? Acha. On this side, we have also some other investors, say other people who want their money to be double in 25 days. 25 दिन में पैसा double, right? So we have also some buyers, some risky buyers, or say some buyers in general, some investors in general in the market. What happens on a usual day? The buyers can contact the sellers that, okay, you give me 5 shares of this company, you give me 6 shares of this company. Also, the buyers can sometimes tell the sellers, okay, I want to now sell. So it will be in this manner that sometimes the buyers can also become the sellers. So it is our usual day-to-day operation in at a place known as the stock market of a country. That is, for example, here in this case, the National Stock Exchange. Now, all of the stock exchange, right, they trade the various shares, stocks, equities on a day-to-day basis between various buyers and sellers, and we understand that this is just a market where every trade and transaction is being done. But who is the main agency who is actually making those billions, trillions of transactions possible? It is being possible by the various clearing corporations. For the NSE, we have the Clearing Corporation of India. What they do? They, for example, whenever a buyer is willing to buy, for example, 2 shares of a company ABC, right? Now, for example, the buyers have actually, one of the buyers, they actually placed the order at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. Now, the bank account has deducted, for example, say 100 rupees for the 2 shares at 2 p.m. But instantly, maybe the shares won't be delivered, because we have to understand that there can be many transaction failures, there can be many risks in which, or say due to which, the transaction can fail. But the sellers, we have to understand, they have already agreed to sell the 2 shares to the buyers. So in this way, we have to understand there must be an intermediary who will be assuring, okay, if you have sold via this National Stock Exchange or Bombay Stock Exchange or any stock exchange, there would be someone to actually let you know, okay, the money would be given. Because why? Because whenever the buyer will be telling that, okay, I want 2 shares, right? What, 100 rupees, I am paying you 100 rupees for that, right? What will be happening? That this clearing corporation in between, they will be purchasing the 2 shares for say a fraction amount of time, and whenever the buyer will be giving some, say for example, the money for the shares, the 2 shares will be given to the buyers, right? So this is how this clearing corporation facilitates or works in this way, by reducing the risks, by making the system more and more transparent and more holistic, right? So this is how this clearing corporation works. And you can ask me, okay, the Clearing Corporation of India is operating only by say a philanthropic manner, or does it not require some profits or money on their own? Obviously it does, because within this price of 100 rupees or whatever the stocks and the shares would be trading at the NSE, right? The National Stock Exchange, because the National Stock Exchange is a parent agency of the Clearing Corporation of India, right? So they will be levying some fees, right? They will be levying some fees. For example, it can be say 2% of the transaction cost, it can be say 10% of the transaction cost, whatever it would be. So it would be included within the transaction only. So buyers, they are actually paying a small fraction of money to the Clearing Corporation of India to actually help the trade become very seamless in this manner. So this is where the trades are being executed in this manner. And there have been many instances where due to some failures, due to some say financial issues, or say some server issues, internet issues, there have been some losses in this side, in which the Clearing Corporation of India have actually offset the losses by being this intermediary in between. Now there are some issues with the clearing corporations of the country. The very first issue is, in our example that we have discussed, that the CCIL was actually the subsidiary of the National Stock Exchange. Now we have to understand the main decision making power. The main decision making power is obviously with the NSE, with reference to all of the transactions, all of the risk management agencies of the CCIL. So this is actually a particular way in which we have to understand that the clearing corporations of the country are dependent on the parent exchange. So this is actually one of the reforms that the Usha Thorat committee will be actually looking into, to make the clearing corporations more and more independent. Because we have to understand that clearing corporations manage a huge amount of risk, manage a huge amount of portfolio, huge amount of transactions. So they must not be dependent fully on the decision making aspects on the various parent agencies. Second is actually the issue or matter of conflict of interest. Conflict of interest signs that obviously we can understand the nature of ownership of the clearing corporations, that the clearing corporations are owned by the parent agency. And for example, any investment decision, any appointment decision, any management decision would be made obviously by the parent agency, for example, NSE in our case. Maybe it would not be going into the favor, good performance of the CCIL. And this is also one of the recommendations which the Usha Thorat committee will be definitely be giving in the future, is about streamlining the role or say actually focusing on the important role of say independent clearing corporations to be functioning, you know, as a neutral agency without any conflict of interest, right? So because we have to understand there are many shareholders involved in NSEs. Actually we can understand that NSE is also listed on the NSE because there are many shareholders. It is a listed company, right? So you know, understand that NSE itself has many shareholders. So those majority shareholders, or say some substantial shareholders, they can put some pressure on the CCIL to favor some decisions in their way. So this is where this Usha Tharwat committee is definitely very important with reference to clearing corporations in the country, right? And with this, I have an MCQ for you all. Please do let me know the answer in the comments. Now recently we have come across a news term here, syndicated loan. Also this term appeared in 2024 prelims examination. Now syndicated loan is in the news. Why? Because recently the Shriram Finance Company, it has taken loans more than $400 million, right, from the various countries all around the world. So it is in essence an external commercial borrowing on their part. And when we talk about the entire structure of this particular external commercial borrowing that Shriram Finance has actually taken, this means that this borrowing, which is actually known as the syndicated loan, it is not coming from a particular bank. For example, if Shriram Finance has taken a loan worth of say $400 million, so maybe it is taking the loan only from Bank of America, right? Only from Bank of America. But it is not the case with syndicated loans. Now in this kind of loans, what is happening is that maybe the Barclays Bank, maybe Morgan Stanley and Chase, maybe some other bank, right, say Bank of England, right? So there are various other banks which are involved in giving this huge loan to Shriram Finance. So when a particular borrower diversifies its loans, right, by actually bringing multiple creditors, it is known as a syndicated loan. And what Shriram Finance will be doing with this loan? This loan is actually something which we know as a social loan, where the main aspect of the loan is to help two kinds of individuals. The individuals are actually small entrepreneurs, and the vulnerable sections of the populations, right? Vulnerable sections of the populations as in the minorities, the SC, ST communities, women. So these are the various communities for which Shriram Finance has actually taken loans, right? More than around say 400 million euros, something like that. And to actually give these loans, distribute to various small businesses, to various, say for example MSMEs, to various vulnerable sections of the population, to actually help them start a decent business. And finally we have to understand this is how this concept of syndicated loan works. That is, you are taking loans from diverse sources and also giving these loans to various other business enterprises and so on, right? So this is the portion of the syndicated loans. And here we need to also talk a little bit about the basics of external commercial borrowings. A very basic one. If you try to define external commercial borrowing, these are the commercial loans taken by eligible resident entities, from non-resident entities abroad. For example, any Indian company such as Shriram Finance taking a loan from the foreign companies. The main purpose is to facilitate the foreign money in the various business operations, the PSUs in the country, right? Maybe for example, we need to take a debt in a foreign currency, from a foreign bank, from a foreign entity. That is why we take external commercial borrowings. Now, who are eligible to take, say, external commercial borrowing? Everyone except limited liability partnerships or the LLPs. What are the types of various external commercial borrowings? The commercial loans, buyer's credit, supplier's credit, export credit, and so on. The currency has to be, say, Indian rupees or any other convertible currency. So the loan amount will be there in the Indian currency, that is actually, or say any other currency that can be converted. Who is a regulatory body? Department of Economic Affairs under the Ministry of Finance, and obviously also our own RBI. The main act that is covering the external commercial borrowing is the Foreign Exchange Management Act of 1999, and the routes, or say the ways in which the ECBs can be granted in India, is under automatic route for eligible entities for some criterias, and also approval route which will be approved by the government, and then you can borrow from the various other banks or say foreign banks and institutions. And one of the main reasons, the main benefits for taking external commercial borrowings is actually the low rate of interest offered by the foreign banks abroad, right? We also understand that in the Western nations, the interest rates are actually very, very low, right? Apart from when we compare it to the domestic borrowing, right? And also access to a large pool of investors, right? Because we understand that if we open our borders, there are many amount of investors, foreigners who want to invest in India. And we also want their money for the various expansion, development purposes. So it is also one of the benefits for that. And also it's the external commercial borrowings actually also trying to diversify the various borrowers and the risks across the entire world. Whoever so is actually taking the commercial borrowings here. Now here I have a question based on the syndicated loans. The answer, you please let me know in the comment section. What do you think is the answer here? A very easy question. Let me know what is the answer. Recently, the Capgemini has released a report known as World Wealth Report 2024. So, it is important for us to understand the various highlights of the report first. It is very easy to understand the highlights because we understand that over a period of time, inequality in the world has increased. With higher levels of income, with higher levels of individuals, the rich individuals accumulating their wealth, it is very much understandable that the accumulation of assets among the wealthy classes is becoming very prevalent nowadays. Firstly, if we can see the progression of the change in allocation of assets, right? Assets can be in cash, in fixed income, in real estate, in equities, alternate investments such as hedge funds and so on, right? So we understand that there are some portions of the population which have actually seen growth in their assets, right? We understand that over a period of time, right, the assets, for example, such as alternate investments, they have increased. Say, for example, real estate, equities, they have also increased if we can see over a period of time. So we understand that people in the world are actually demanding more and more of alternate financial instruments, real estate, stocks, right? Irrespective of the cash and the fixed incomes. Over a period of time, as we can see, despite the crisis years of 2023, the COVID year of 2020, right? We find that the people right now are actually demanding more of the high class or highly priced assets. This means that in the country, the demand for these assets represent, the demand means the people who are demanding them. Obviously, the people who are demanding them are wealthy individuals, high net worth individuals, right? And also, if we can look at the overall report, which you can, the three highlights of which you can also quote in the mains answers. Wealth expanded in the world by 4.7% as of 2023, reaching around $86.8 trillion, right? The high net worth individuals in the nation, right? The people who are actually having high income and high amount of wealth in the country. In India, they have increased by 12.2% in 2023, and India's market capitalization has increased by 29% in 2023. So what these figures all represent? Market cap increase, that means more and more people are participating or say investing in the stocks or in the stock market as general. Because market cap, effectively means the amount of money in the various private sector and the various PSUs of the company listed at the stock exchange. So if this is increasing, obviously means that there are some people who are increasing their investments. If high net worth individuals in the countries are increasing, we mean that more of the wealth are concentrated in their hands. So this is the overall report that we can understand in this sense. And also, if we talk about some other aspects of inequality, especially when we talk about India, we have a very important report which you can evidently please quote in your mains answers, your essays, and also people who have economics optional. You can quote this report by Thomas Piketty. right? Thomas Piketty, in his Income and Wealth Inequality in India, from 1992 to 2023, the rise of billionaire Raj, right? It tells that over a period of time, right, over a period of time from 1922 to 23, the income share and the wealth share of the bottom 50%, and the middle 50%, and the top 50% and the top 1%, as you can see. The top 1% with reference to income, they hold 22% of overall income in India, 40.1% of overall, say, wealth in the country. Right? If you can understand the significance, the top 1% are holding 40% wealth of India. This is huge. This is significant. Right? And also we can see the bottom 50% hold only 6.4% of the entire wealth. That means we can understand out of around 1.4 to 1.5 billion people in the country right now, right? The bottom 50%, right, or around easily 1.3 to around 1.4 billion people, effectively more than 95 to 90, say 6, 7, 8% of the people are actually falling only under bottom, middle, and some in the top, right? So we understand this is the level of inequality in the country that is prevalent as of now. Achha. Now if you can look into this data, right, this is a very, very important aspect which is showing, right, the income wise share in national income and the adult population in each bracket. So we understand that when we talk about, say, the income share, say the bottom 50% of the population, right, around 46.1 crore people, right, are having income share of only 15%. Right, the top 1%, which is only around 92 lakh something, they are having 22%. So this is the amount of inequality, right? Now this chart is showing the income shares of India's top 10% and top 1% compared with select countries. So if you can see, India, South America, Brazil, US, these are some of the nations which are highly unequal, because the top 10% and top 1%, as you can see, right, this is actually in high variance. And also if you can see the top 1% here, India is actually having more and more inequality by having more top 1% of the income and the wealth, concentrated in, ultra rich individuals. If you can see, this income is even higher than US, Brazil and South Africa, right? So this is the nature of the inequality in the country. If you can look at this graph here, right, this is showing the year-wise share of the national income for 2000, top 10%, bottom 50%, and middle 40% of the population, right? And here we have the share of the national income, as we have seen in this figure also, right? We can understand, if you can see, they occupy for more than 50 to 60%, the top 1% of the population over a period of time. So these facts and figures, this data, you can actually summarize something in your answer copies, in your notes, to actually show the extent of the income and the wealth inequality in the country. This high amount of inequality is actually the reason why we need inclusive growth. Now, what is inclusive growth? We obviously understand that it is actually, growth of all, right? That means all sections of the population, be it poor, be it the richer classes, be it the rural population, be it the urban population, everyone, right? If economic growth is happening in any part of the country, the effects and the fruits of the same must be distributed to everyone. So this is the main idea of inclusive growth. And here we have to understand that whenever we are talking about inclusive growth, or say any question that appears on inclusive growth, you must be thinking of the various stakeholders, of the inclusive growth, right? That means the benefits of the, inclusive growth must be going to these stakeholders, or for example, say these can be women, right? The stakeholders are, say, migrant laborers. The stakeholders can be the various people, the various vulnerable sections of the population, such as SCs, ST communities, the minorities. The stakeholders can also be the various self-employed individuals, right, who do not, for example, have bank accounts, have basic financial literacy, this kind of aspects, right? So there are many people who need inclusive growth in the economy. There are also people belonging to the agricultural economy, right? So these are the people who are the stakeholders of inclusive growth, and that is why in a picture, in a single say chart and diagram, we have some of the most important inclusive growth initiatives to reduce inequality in the society. Firstly, if you can see, we have the PM Awas Yojana, we have the various water connection facilities, we have the various initiatives for the women population, for example, giving, say, LPG cylinders under Ujjwala Yojana. We have participation of women in the armed forces. We have also the Mudra loans, the MSME loans given to the various women beneficiaries, and we have also the various maternity leave benefits to the women. So if you can see, this is a very good amount of summary of all the important government schemes at a single place, if you want here, as you can see here, right? There are also many other initiatives, as you can see here, right? For example, the various schemes for the youth, for women, for various other sections of the population, for example, farmers, for, say, the rising stature of the, in India, for example, infrastructure. So these are all the themes, the stakeholders of inclusive growth, right? So this is a very important aspect that the government should be actually taking a lot of action, a lot of steps to actually deliver the various developmental aspirations, the welfare schemes to the people of the country, right? So with this, I have another quiz for you all. Please let me know the answer in the comments below. Recently, the SEBI has imposed many fines on many individuals who have been accused of doing this pump and dump scheme. Now, this is actually related to stock markets, and if you can look closely at this figure, aren't you seeing something abnormal here? We are seeing one instance where the prices of the stocks are increasing, then decreasing, again increasing and decreasing, again increasing and decreasing, again increasing, decreasing, increasing, decreasing, and finally it is at the lowest level. So these are actually some patterns is we can see in some of the stocks that the prices change quite frequently, and in a very similar manner in this way in which prices increase and then decrease, again increase and decrease. So these are something which are known as the increase part, or say this part is known as pump, where due to some reason the prices were pumped up, and due to some reasons the prices were dumped, right? The prices collapsed. And this is actually very easy to understand that when the prices of the stocks fall or crash, it leads to losses for the various investors, right? So this happens simply. For example, in stock markets, what we see on a day-to-day basis, we see these kind of headlines, right? Big headlines, stock market news, announcements, rumors, and so on. For example, imagine that there is a finfluencer. We have already discussed what is a finfluencer, right? Now, what this finfluencer is telling, that for example, there is a stock ABC, right? The price of the stock will be going from 10 rupees to 1000 rupees in the next 5 years, right? Now, this finfluencer has 10 million followers on Instagram. So all of the 10 million, at least say if the 50% of the followers, or say 5 million people go to the stock market and purchases this stock at 10 rupees right now. So obviously the demand of 5 million people will be actually more than the supply of the stock in the market. So naturally, when the demand rises than supply, the price increase of that particular stock. So we will be seeing that out of no reason, out of just a speculation of this finfluencer, for example, on of this particular stock, right, the prices have risen of the stock, because simply there are many people who will be running to buy this stock. Why did the finfluencer spread this rumor in the very first place? Maybe because the finfluencer had herself maybe say 10 stocks of ABC, right? So maybe this person wanted to have more and more profits, and that is why this person pushed all of her social media followers, and all of them went to the market, and finally the prices have been pushed up, for example, to rupees 100 right now. And what the influencer will be doing right now? That person will be selling all the stocks that she had in the stock market, hence having a huge amount of profit out of doing nothing, just by spreading such rumors, for example, right? So this is how the prices are pumped up, right? And when the prices are pumped up, what happens? That people like these influencers and maybe her own broker, her own friends and families, together they will be another, say 1 million people, right? For example, right? What they will be doing? They will be dumping their stocks, or say selling their stocks to gain the profit. Now in this manner, what will happen? The price of the stock will be coming down, because they are dumping the stocks in the market right now. The price will be coming down, hence there would be a crash in the market, and then the stock, the investors would be like this, right? Investors will be losing all their money. This is not a very funny situation, rather this is a very serious situation where people lose lakhs and lakhs of their money due to just these kind of false rumors by the influencers. And that is why SEBI has actually brought some few regulations. Firstly, there would be fines for people who are involved in pump and dump strategies. Also, a very famous example of a famous Bollywood actor was found recently. You let me know the name of that actor if you know in the comment section below, right? Apart from this, SEBI is also trying to employ various amounts of, say, software and algorithms, right, using artificial intelligence, machine learning, to detect such pump and dump strategies in the market. It has also taken recent steps or rules and regulations on the various finfluencers, where only the finfluencers who are spreading financial literacy, right, by not using any sponsorships, by not for any money and say advertisements and so on, they would be allowed to operate. Any other influencer who are actually taking sponsorships, ad and so on, they will be strictly under the advertising code of India, right? So there have been tough norms and regulations on these individuals, right? Now, again a question for you all. Please let me know the answer in the comments. Now recently, the Punjab Agricultural University has observed that despite pushing the farmers for direct seeding of rice, the farmers are not actually moving on to the direct seeding of rice practice. Now to understand this, firstly, we must understand the traditional plantation of rice. Traditionally what happened, is still happening right now in rice cultivation, is that seeds are taken, they are actually coated with various fertilizers and so on, and they are planted into something which we know as nurseries, right? Now nurseries are places where these seeds are actually coated with various essential minerals and fertilizers and so on, and they are arranged in small groups, as you can see here, small groups in rows or in, say, on the field itself, right, as a form of nurseries. Now they remain in nurseries for a particular period of time, and when they the rice crop, they actually reach a certain amount of height, they are then planted in the actual field. And throughout this process, there are at least requirements of more than 20 instances of irrigation. That means from nurseries to harvesting of the rice crop, we need more than 20 times, 20 times of irrigation of the crop. So it means that the traditional kind of plantation of rice is highly water intensive. So it actually wastes a lot of water. But it is also very easy to follow. It is also very easy to practice on a day-to-day manner. Here, we also have another technique of direct seeding of rice. In the traditional one, remember, we are actually planting the rice in nurseries for a certain period of weeks, and after that we actually have to introduce it to the field. In this, we use proper amount of machines such as happy seeders or various other machines to actually drill the rice into the soil, right? So from the soil only it starts to germinate. So from the soil only it starts to germinate. But the main thing with direct seeding of rice is that it requires far less water, because we do not have to apply nursery kind of plantation there, right? And also we have to understand we need proper amount of machines, right? Apart from the, say, happy seeder machines which actually drill the seeds directly into the soil, we also need land levelers. We using particular laser techniques to actually level the land before actually drilling the seeds into the soil. So this is also actually quite costly also in this manner. And if we look into the various factors that influence DSR, firstly it is the soil texture. So mainly soil which can retain water, they are actually more friendly towards direct seeding of rice. Second is actually the presence of iron content in the soil is also very important for DSR. Third, there must be proper amount of mechanization. Such as land leveling using lasers, happy seeding, drum seeder, and so on to actually make it possible. And fourth, there must be proper amount of awareness plus also the willingness and also the training, the skill aspect of the farmers to adopt DSR, right? So this is actually how DSR is actually practiced, and it is actually far more better than the traditional crops. If you can try to compare the advantages and the drawbacks of the DSR, we firstly understand, the main advantage is actually reduced water consumption. It saves labor costs also, because generally we try to use machines by drilling the rice seeds directly into the soil. It also establishes the crop earlier and also gives higher amount of yields. It reduces the incidence of various diseases and pests, because we have to actually understand that this is a far more mechanized process, and this is also trying to drill the seeds deep into the ground, right? So diseases and pests are also reduced to that extent. And also it is improving soil health due to less disturbance of the soil. So we are not disturbing the soil much here in this manner. Then the drawbacks firstly is that it is requiring specialized equipments. If we talk about the laser aspect, the laser land leveling aspect, it requires around say 1,000 to 2,000 rupees. 2,000 rupees for properly leveling the land per acre in Punjab. So the farmers are telling it is very, very costly. Also, it may not be suitable for all soil types or weather conditions. We have only seen there are soil types which actually retain high amount of water, and also the soil which are having higher amount of iron, they are only conducive, right? And also they can be more susceptible to weed infestation in the early stages, because it is using less amount of water. And in traditional rice cultivation, water is used in huge amounts. Why? Because water is seen as one of the strategies of weed control. Water is natural. Water is a natural weedicide, right? And also it requires precise seed placement in the soil. And finally, it cannot be, or say may not be suitable to all of the rice varieties, particularly to local rice varieties, right, such as Govindbhog, such as Pokali rice in various parts of the country. So it may not be suitable for all rice variants, but only for the popular varieties such as Basmati rice. Here there is another practice question for you all. You can let me know the answer in the comment below. Recently, the Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs, it has taken the welcome steps to electronically transfer the amount of duty drawbacks through the PFMS system. And firstly, we need to understand the duty drawback aspect of this here. Firstly, when we talk about, for example, in this case, an item to be imported into India. So we know that for any item to be imported, we generally have an import duty. And for example, if we consider the same good, for example, the same good, if it is after being imported, after being paid duty, right, it is again being exported, right? So for exporters, we find this duty is an additional cost. It is an additional cost if it has to be exported again. So this is why the government is actually trying to lower the cost of the exporters by giving them duty drawback, right? So this is the duty drawback when the government of India, right, in this case, will be refunding whatever the excess duty that has been paid by the exporter. So this is the main aspect of the duty drawback in this particular manner. Now, in recent times, it has been seen that the cost of business for the exporters, they have been rising. So that is why the recent CBIC, the Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs, it has been seen that firstly, they are actually trying to liberalize the export sector, right? It is trying to have a seamless amount of export sector. Second, the norm is actually about having a faster amount of export and import with the least amount of clearances in the country, right? So we understand in this manner, they are actually electronic transferring the duty drawback directly to the exporter using the PFMS system, right? Thirdly, this is also doing away with the various paperworks, with the various documents, with the various clearances in this manner. So this is a very welcome step that is done by the CBIC by actually streamlining the exports of the country. Now if you look at the public finance management system, now public finance management system is actually a waste-based online software application developed by the Controller General of Accounts under the Ministry of Finance. And here the primary function is to facilitate for the various functions of the union government a safe fund flow system and also payment across the various accounting networks. It provides the various stakeholders with a real-time, reliable and meaningful management information on the various transactions that are happening, right? And also it was launched in 2009 with the objective of tracking the government funds released under various schemes of the planning commission, and also the real-time reporting as to what the government is doing with the schemes. And also it is the channel for the various direct benefit transfers in the country, and right now it is also used for the duty drawback as we have seen here, right? And it is also integrated with the core banking system, where this is actually a network. This is actually a network that is connecting all the banks, the public and the private banks in the country, which is the core banking system, which was proposed by the RBI. And this is actually also helping the seamless integration of the banking system with the government system of transactions, right? So with this, you let me know what is the answer to this question in the comments below. Recently, the National Financial Reporting Authority has been set up by the Union Cabinet. Now, what is it all about? It is actually the main aspect of being an independent regulator of the audit mechanism or the financial audit mechanism of the country, right? So, it will be an independent regulator for the auditing profession, right? Which was actually one of the changes brought up under the Companies Act of 2013, right? Now, it is very important for the various companies to undergo various audits to actually understand what are the various tax liabilities, what are the various profitability, and for the various financial transparency in the country. So that is why this National Financial Reporting Authority will be will be very important into looking into the audit infrastructure, audit architecture of the country. When we talk about the jurisdiction of the NFRA, so it will be for the investigation of various chartered accountants and their firms under section 132 of the Companies Act, and it will also be extended to various listed companies and large unlisted public companies too, right? And also we have to understand that the central government can sometimes also refer such matters in public interest, right? And when we talk about the various function, various composition of this particular agency, right? So there would be a chairperson. There would be a chairperson who would be appointed by the central government. right? And there will be other members. There will be other members also. There will be other members who will be experts in finance, auditing, accountancy, right? And also these other members and the chairperson, they should not be associated with any of the firms, the financial firms, such as CA firms, accountancy firms, audit firms of the country, right? So they should not be associated, obviously, to prevent conflict of interest. So it is very important that we know a brief amount of facts and information on this National Financial Reporting Authority. Based on this, you answer the quiz in the comments below again.